welcome to Denver Parks and Recreation at Home. My name is Sarah with Arts and Culture, and welcome on how to draw superheroes. Now this is a class that's specifically for about ages 10 and up, but I will say that this is going to be something really fun for ages 10 to 18. So come on over, let's check it out. The first thing I want to talk about before we get drawing is the supplies that you're going to need, okay? And I really want to emphasize that I'm going to show you a couple different options because this isn't about having the best, most expensive art supplies. You can do this with pretty much anything at home, so don't be discouraged. Right here, I'm not even using fancy sketch paper. I just basic computer paper. You can use construction paper, the back of some documents, or if you have a sketchbook, go for it. But you just need paper. The only basic things you're gonna need is a number 2 pencil that has an eraser on the bottom. That's it. I'm gonna add a little bit more stuff in, because let's say you don't have any pencils, you could also just use a pen. I will also be using a fine tip, and then a regular, and then an extra thick Sharpie. These are gonna be for textures. These are not required. You can just use a pencil, but if you have these, go for it. Also, we might be doing some coloring. I have red and blue color pencils here. You don't need color either. We can just make this black and white, but you're more than welcome to add some flair if you have the option, okay? So this is what we're gonna be go ahead and using today. And I also have this big eraser right here. Once again, not required, but if you have it, let's go for it. So let's get started. All right, so the first thing that we're gonna do when it comes to learning how to draw superheroes, we're gonna go over just some key tips. The first thing that we're gonna talk about is mapping the body using lines and circles. So one of the first things we all learn how to draw, right, when we're younger, is our classic stick figure. We're on the right track. So when we wanna make this a little bit more professional, you wanna have here, you have your circle, you have your main body right here, okay? But now we have our hips, so I'm gonna use a circle right here. And then from here, we can draw lines going out for legs. And we wanna go ahead and make circles for the joints, for the feet, out here, circle there, elbow. See there? These are the tactics that we like to use when we're trying to map out the body. Because whenever we watch cartoons or we read comic books, what's the big thing that we have to capture? Motion, running, punching, flying in the air. So if we want to get somebody running, it's really hard just to try to draw somebody running right off the bat, but it's much easier to go ahead and take some lines. And let's see, if I want to do somebody running right here, I'd probably have their arms bent, right? Like they're running. And then maybe they were going this way because they're curving their arm up, right? Perfect, so they're kind of bending down. And then what would happen? I'd probably have their hips here, and I think we'd probably have a leg up, right? Because one leg up in the air. So there's my knee, there's my foot, and then maybe this knee here, and they're running, and then we want to get some action. So if this is the floor right here, maybe their toes are popped up, right? And then if I draw little lines right here, we kind of get the beginnings of somebody pushing off and running. This is a very simple, so I'm only gonna go over this once, but this is a really great way to start practicing. These are gonna be your bone, this is your blueprints for movement and flow. And you can kind of see here, I have some examples that I was playing around with. I have somebody hunched over, somebody flying in the air. This looks like a SpiderMan swinging through the air, or a Tarzan flying through the vines, anything like that. So the first trick to really getting a good body shape is just to practice your lines and circles. Look at yourself in a mirror, play with your hands, anything you can think of. This is just step 1, and it's just a really good trick, and it's something you can practice even just riding the bus. So the next type of mapping that we have to talk about is one of the most important things we see, the face. Now this is a very stylized picture. It's not a classic style of a comic book. However, I did this on purpose because it's very clear definitions of features. And I'll show you what that means. So the first thing, whenever we start with the face, no matter what, unless you have an alien, you're just gonna want a basic circle. Any kind of Homo sapien character, humanoid character, we just wanna have an oval or a round circle. If it's a child, usually a smaller circle, doesn't matter. Best way to start practicing, circle. Now when we talk about mapping the face, is that faces all have key features, right? We have our eyes, ears, nose, mouth, and once again, unless you're drawing an alien, the proportions are always gonna be the same. So even if we have higher cheekbones or a square jaw, anything like that, that doesn't matter. The shape of the face, the silhouettes, they don't matter because the proportions will always be the same. So first thing, we have our face. You want to go ahead, you want to cut your face in half. This is how we get 2 parts because we have 2 eyes, 2 ears, a half of a mouth. We're going to go ahead and need this line. Now, the second thing we're going to need is our lines for eyes, okay? So usually what I like to do, I want to find the halfway mark of my circle, which is probably right here, right? And I just usually want to go up just a little bit more and draw a line across. And see how I'm drawing very light? That's because eventually I can erase these lines. So right there, if you think that's a little too high, you can always make it a little lower. But let's say right here, that's where our eye line will be, okay? Now, whenever you have your eye line, you're going to go ahead and you're going to want your ears to come right under it. So I'm going to draw just 2 small little ovals under. Okay? So right there, there's my ears, there's my eye line. So now I'm going to go down 1, and I'm just going to go ahead and put a little mark. So here's the bottom of my ears. If I put a little mark here, anywhere between here and here, that's going to go ahead and be the bottom of our nose. So now we kind of know where our nose is going to be. So from our nose, we'll go ahead down a little bit more, and I'm going to do a line across here. That's going to go ahead and be for our lips. So once again, you want to cut the face in half. You're going to start up, draw your eye line. No matter where your eye line's at, the ears always go under the eye line. From your circle of your ears, you then can use that bottom to gauge where you want the bottom of the nose to go. And then once you have the nose, then you can gauge that gap between the nose and the top lip and draw your mouth line. So we have this right here, super simple. I'm just gonna use this pen real quick to show you how that kind of works out. So here's our eyes right here. I kind of even think that my eyes might be a little too high. However, let's say I'm drawing an alien or an interesting looking character, it doesn't matter. So I'll go ahead. Here's an eye here. And now you see how we have our half here? Now I can make sure the eye is in between centered. So I don't have to worry about my eyes not lining up. The only thing you have to struggle with is to make sure your eyes are the same size. So here's some eyes. We're just doing a quick drawing. We're not stressing. And then I have my ears. Let's say my ears go like that. Now I'm giving them detail, okay? And then for my nose right here, maybe I'll just, this isn't perfect. This is just an example. There's a nose. And then from there, we have our lips. And we'll just go ahead and I might just have this person have some just regular lips. Maybe they're smirking a little bit, right? And then from there, you can expand on that. Give them eyebrows. If you want to give them hair. Maybe this person does have a bigger jawline. It's looking like I'm kind of creating somebody here. And then maybe the hairline here. And that's going to gauge how big your forehead's going to be. All right, just like that. And then I definitely drew a masculine character. So I'll go ahead and just put a neck right there. And then you could just go ahead and erase your line. So that's how we map the face. Once again, practice, practice, practice. This is going to take some time. Once again, just sketch, sketch, sketch. But when you learn these mapping techniques, it becomes really easy to start creating bodies in motion and building characters up. And that's how you get a lot of symmetry. That's the secret to a lot of these illustrations and comics and things like that. So now that we've gone over mapping the face, mapping the body, we're going to touch on the difference between men and women. Now, this is not the difference between men and women when it comes to just real life portraits, painting, things like that. Cartoons and comic books are very stylized. And because they're already, a cartoon, they're not realistic, we rely on certain tips and tricks to really define not just men and women, but villain and bad guy, weak and strong. There's going to be some tropes that you're going to need to start practicing, and that's really going to help get the message you want across about a character. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll give you a quick example here. So remember we talked about mapping out the body, right? So I have just my circle, the sternum, maybe I have this hips right here, things like that, right? So we know we're doing all of that. I'm going to kind of skip this process ahead because I've been practicing my whole life, just like I'm sure you're practicing right now, and point out some things that are important to remember. So when you're drawing a male character, okay, so here's a man, right? First thing, men, they will always have thicker necks. So sometimes when we draw necks, we kind of want to do this like little vase shape here, when we're doing superheroes, we want men to have more of a cone or a mountain shape. It's just a little bit thicker, okay? That's one trick that will help get across masculinity when it comes to drawing. The other thing is we're gonna have much broader shoulders. So what that means is I'm gonna go ahead and have this guy's shoulders, and because this is a comic book, it's not real life, they're just gonna be a little bit misproportioned to what would normally be real. However, it's gonna look good. Whenever you see somebody like Superman or Shazam, when we see those characters, right, they have those big boxy top heavy bodies. That's how we get masculinity across when we're drawing comic book characters. So with my broad shoulders, that means that I'm gonna kind of match and have a heavier, wider top, much boxier top, okay? Now the other thing too is now when we're drawing men, they're a little straight, and then their legs are gonna be equal and proportional. I'll show you what that means. So if you look down at your legs right now, go ahead and look. We have two parts, right? You're gonna have your thighs, and you're gonna have your calves. Now, you may notice that some people, they have bigger thighs, smaller calves, vice versa. In the world of comics, especially when we're drawing large, muscular superhero men, they're always gonna have thick thighs and thick calves, but they're going to be the same size. So if I have a man right here, right? There's my first half of my leg. For the calf, same thing. And then, whatever kind of feet you want. Maybe my alien has crazy toes, that doesn't matter. But you see here, these are going to be the same size. We have a little bit of a tint right here, a little bit of an indent to show definition. But these are the features when it comes to drawing a man. So the big thing again, thicker neck, broader shoulders, we're gonna have a square boxy top, and the big one, we want the thighs and the calves to be equal in thickness. Now that might not make that much sense, but I'll show you why that's so important. Because now we have to talk about the female form, which I have found that a lot of young artists, especially just getting into comics and cartooning, tend to have a little bit more difficulty with the women. So I'm hoping maybe these little tricks can help you, okay? So here we go. We have our lady. Same thing, same size head. Doesn't matter. We all have domes. Now we do want to kind of embrace that curved neck. So instead of having these masculine thick necks, we're going to go ahead and we're going to have curvy necks, that nice little U shapes here. Now here's the difference though, especially when we're drawing superhero women. She will have a nice slender neck, but we're not gonna take away her shoulders. We're not gonna give her huge broad shoulders like the man, but they're still gonna be just a little bit bigger than normal because we're still creating someone strong and powerful. We wanna make these characters larger than life, right? They're superheroes. So the other big thing about when you are drawing a woman is that they will have a defined waist. So we really do want to embrace that curve. So here, we have that boxy top half. Here, we're gonna have that curve, okay? Now here's the difference though. Especially when you're drawing characters like Wonder Woman, She-Hulk, superhero females that tend to be more masculine, or not more masculine, I should say fitter, that's the word. When I use the word masculine and feminine, I want to be clear, I'm referring to terms and how we defined the art style so we can make sure we have labels for everything. There's no wrong right away when it comes to masculine and feminine. So when we have more fit and muscular women, we're going to have a larger back. When we have slimmer, more petite women like somebody like Poison Ivy or Harley Quinn, the back will almost disappear. So let me show you here. So here I have two waistlines, okay? So the one thing we have to do is we have to make sure we have the bust for the female. So if I'm drawing a strong, physically fit female, let's see, there is that, and then we have that. Now you see there's this gap right here, that gap, that's the sign of muscles. That's being really fit. So we still have a feminine form, but she's got bigger proportions because she's really strong and she's gonna beat you up. Now, when we have more petite women, maybe somebody usually like gymnasts, where their style is more being nimble, less being just strong and punching, you would have the same thing, right? But then here, we would go ahead, we'd continue the bust to the line, and they just naturally kind of look slimmer. losing that back muscle right here really can make a big difference, and it can really help define what kind of fit your female is. It's a really cool little trick, okay? So now that we have that, the other thing you really want to talk about here is our proportions for the bottom half. Now, we want them to still be strong, right? I know women, we want to make them really curvy, but we want to make sure that they're still fit and powerful. They're supposed to be a presence. So the big difference for women is that we do have a defined waist, but for them, they're actually going to usually have thicker thighs than any of the male characters, but then they will have smaller calves. So if any of you have ever watched the Justice League cartoons on Cartoon Network or anything like that, this is a style that you're going to see and be familiar with. So when we have our female superheroes, our thighs, they're going to be thick. They're usually going to be thicker. Well, they should be thicker than the males. But then we're going to have smaller calves, which will then create more definition. Now, in general, the female form is usually more bottom heavy, where we have our male form tends to be more top heavy. And so the big thing we want to do is we want to make sure that we don't make these characters just curvy and almost Barbie-like. They're still supposed to be fit, strong, powerful women. But we have to have these definitions. Like, this is a very Wonder Woman bottom, okay? Now, I'm not putting too much detail on these because I just want to talk about these differences, but these are going to be ways that are going to just really help you remember the difference and just kind of give a little bit more life to your illustrations here. So remember, we have this difference in necks. Both will have broad shoulders, just proportionate to their size. Top heavier for males, boxier, bigger chest plate, very Superman style. Females, they're going to have a defined waist, but you can have two types of females. You can have a very more top-heavy, muscular She-Hulk type, or a more slender gymnastic type like Harley Quinn. We're going to go ahead and make sure that our males have thick thighs and thick calves, but they're going to be the same in proportion, while our females will have thicker thighs on top and smaller calves on the bottom. Really accentuating those leg curves is going to create the illusion of muscle when it comes to women. That is the big difference between these two. Once again, I'm not going to go into too many detail about it, but here's a really good example here. Do you see how I map the face, I map the body, all of that? Those are just really good tricks, okay? So we've mapped. We're going to just talk about shapes really quick that you can use to your advantage. You'll notice, especially on shows like Nickelodeon, I'm going to use a Sharpie for this. We might get some very stylized art. I always use Invader Zim, or if anybody remembers what Ren and Stimpy was like, those are really good examples where there seems to be a style. Things are curvier, things are boxier. These are illustrations that use shapes, not just to create a style, but to actually streamline the illustrations, and I'll show you what that means. I always like to use boxes and triangles as a really good example. This is going to be a little quick, and this is something that you just have to start playing with and practicing, so don't worry if you don't pick this up right away. You just keep playing along with it. And I'm going to use a Sharpie for it just so you can really see what I'm saying. So when I talk about shapes, let's see here. I have a square right here. I'm going to put a triangle right there, triangle right there. Why don't I put a triangle right there? Now this is going to kind of be maybe a bit of a long box right here. But then what I'm going to do, when I get here at the end, I'm going to bring this in a little bit, okay? Look at this, very simple lines. I'm going to put a bunch of just triangles here on the bottom. And if I just put two triangles right here in a line, I'm Batman. See, things like that are really easy, and you can just go ahead and you can color it in. So really also explore shapes, because maybe if something like we just practiced the form is just a little bit too detailed for you, you know, the cool thing about cartoons and comic books is they can look however you want them to look. We're not creating real life portraits here. We're creating your world and your universe, and you have the time to explore and figure it out. So that's another really good trick when it comes to illustrating comic book characters. So now that we've gone over these little tips here, I thought we could do a quick tutorial on how to draw a very specific superhero. I have right here SpiderMan. Now, this is a Spider-Man that's based off of a lot of the newer comics and like the Nickelodeon cartoons, things like that. And now we see it on Disney Plus. So we can see here, this one's a little bit more cartoony. And I want to point out some things when we learn how to draw. So remember we talked about the form? Look at that, the broader shoulders, right? When we talked about using shapes to your advantage, look right here at his hands. People don't have square fingertips. But do we see how these just boxy shapes, these, you know, just kind of creating this style of these sharp lines? It looks good, and we're not really focusing on crazy details. So we can just have a little bit of proportions off. It's gonna work out really well. So I'm gonna go through this step by step. You'll probably have to rewind it to try over and over again. And I'm just gonna go ahead really quick and show you how to draw Spider-Man, okay? This will be fun. So first things first, we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna need his face. I'm gonna go ahead and skip ahead from the little things like needing to draw the circle and the lines and all that, just because I've done this before. And I'm gonna draw light before I go over with marker in case I make a mistake, because even I can make mistakes. Now we have to draw the eyes. Remember we talked about mapping the face and cutting it in half? So with this one, because he's looking that way, we'd map the face like that, right? So whenever you have the line facing, that's where the nose is. So that means that if the nose is facing this way, this eye is going to be bigger than that eye. So let me just go ahead here. Now, all those cool tricks I taught you about proportions with Spider-Man, we throw them out the window because Spider-Man's wearing a mask. So it doesn't matter his proportions. They're not real. So there's one eye. And the only secret here is I want to make sure when I draw the second eye, they line up. I'm right-handed, so I'm probably blocking you off a little bit. So let me try to show you. Do you see? So I'm trying to make sure these teardrop marks, they match. Perfect. Here are our eyes. Next, we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna fill our eyes in. So I'm just gonna go ahead, and I will go back over this really quick with marker real fast so you can really see it. But we wanna go ahead and make the tip of his mask. We've all seen Spider-Man Homecoming. We know what he's supposed to look like. Now we have to go ahead, we have to draw him swinging. So I'm gonna go ahead, we're just gonna draw a line right here at his cheekbone, out, okay? Then I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna draw a line curved this way, right? And then I'm gonna go ahead and draw a little line like that. And then I'm gonna go ahead and draw just a little curve going like that. Perfect. And then right here on the chin, I'm gonna draw a line going curved down like that. And I even think that was actually a little too thick. That's why I have this big one here. And that's why you're supposed to draw lightly. Like, there we go, like that. Kind of meeting here. And I'm gonna draw the same kind of swiggle, but this one's gonna just be a little longer, line like that. And then we'll just go ahead and do something like that. Perfect, okay? And you know, if this doesn't come out perfect the first time, just practice, practice, practice. Draw it lightly, you can clean it up. So the next thing I'm gonna go ahead and do is, I wanna draw his web really quick. So I'm gonna just extend this hand out, one line down there. We're gonna do a line like that. Do a little curve like that. And then like that, okay? And then I wanna just draw the web going out. So I'm just gonna go whoop, whoop. And because we're just having a little stylized comic, we can pretend those are web lines. Perfect. And then I'm gonna go ahead right here in the middle here. I'm gonna draw a line going all the way down to here. And then a line going all the way up there. All right. And then we're gonna go ahead and do a line going here. Here's our shoulder. Line like that. Line like that. Okay. Now see how this one's kind of getting smaller? That's because here we're having his arm just kind of go out. We're trying to create some dimensions here. I'm gonna draw a line like that, and like that. Super easy, super quick. We're gonna draw a line going right here. Perfect. And then down here, I have to go ahead and draw his hands. This does not have to be perfect. Remember we talked about using boxes to your advantage. So I'll do a line like that. Line like that. I'm just gonna like create some quick lines here, super quick, because I'm gonna come back later and clean them up. Let's make sure the web goes back. Perfect. Okay. Then we're gonna go ahead. We're gonna draw another line, and we're gonna have that line go ahead and go right here. Perfect. I'm gonna draw a line going from here, and then I'm gonna have that line going across and meeting here, just like that one. And then I'm gonna go ahead. Right around here, I'm gonna draw a line going out that way, line going down. I'm gonna curve that line. Then I'm gonna go ahead and bring this one over here. Okay, that was a little too thick. there. Perfect. Line going down like that. And then we'll have this line going down here. I know I'm going fast for you, but I really want to show you that this is what happens when you just practice, practice, practice. And you're going to go ahead and notice that it doesn't really matter if it's super clean or not, because this is all just about creating proportions. So before I draw the rest of his leg, you remember he's flying in the air. So we have to make this foot just bigger so that it looks like it's coming up closer to you, right? So I'll just go ahead and do that. I'm going to curve this. Big feet because they're flying through the air. And then here, we're going to go ahead and just have like a fun little little curve like that. And then we'll just put his feet like that. And sometimes if you think it's not clean enough, you can always match the other foot. So if I want this foot to go out like that, you know, just doing it real quick. We're going to draw a line right here. That's where his boots are. And then with this big foot here, I'm going to go ahead and draw another line going this way. So let's make these lines match. No big deal. And so then I'm going to go ahead on this side. I'm going to draw a line here, draw a line like that, curve a line right here, and then we're going to bring this line right here. See, just a bunch of little lines in there. And I think I'll just go ahead and I'm going to do a line like there. Awesome. And then that. Now my foot right here, I think it's a little too high. You want to bring it lower. And that's why I'm just kind of sketching, because I'll go over it real quick with marker. And I'm just going to do a quick placeholder for my spider. I said I'm going to go over this with marker real quick, so you can see what I'm talking about. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead and just draw this line going up like that. Okay, so once we start to get those shapes here happening, I'm just going to go ahead, show you real quick. I know this isn't super clean because I'm trying to show you all the tricks in one round. Okay, so then you can just kind of take the marker, kind of explore, really just embrace all of your shapes. I'll put my foot even lower here now. See, I told you how I thought my foot was too low. Look, I can fix it really quick by using the marker. Perfect, so then you're just go ahead, you're gonna start to just create this superhero, and then I want to show you when you do his spider. 2 diamonds. Remember we talked about shapes? Using shapes. And we'll just do 2 lines. There, 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 there. And the only thing you want to remember when you're doing Spider-Man, if you're going to go ahead and you want to color him in, I just had colored pencils out in this example, you want to make sure that you just don't mix up your red and blue. I have to do blue first when I do Spider-Man, and the only secret to the webbing is just do a circle in the middle and then out. And honestly, from there, you are just following the pattern. And remember, spider webs are curved. Same thing over here. If we're doing Spider-Man here, we know they're curved, so we just make sure they stay together. And so as you just start practicing and practicing and cleaning it up, eventually you'll go ahead and you'll get a Spider-Man like this. That was a very brief tutorial on how to draw superheroes, but hopefully with all these tips and tricks, you guys are going to be making your own world, your own comics, and one day I'm going to be watching you in your new show on TV. Have a great day, guys. Thanks for joining us.